providing live finance advice on WMAC since 1993. It's time for Your Money with Steve Rosenberg, Sherri Goss, and Randy Goss. To participate in today's program, call 478-742-0940 with your financial questions or comments. And now live from the Macon studios of News Talk 940 WMAC, it's Your Money.
Good morning, Middle Georgia. Sherri Goss and Becca Wilton are here. We've got to change that intro and fix it and get your name on there. I thought Randy emailed them.
Yeah, I talked to him this week about it. He said he was going to. So maybe they were slow up here.
But anyways, we are here to take your phone calls, 478-742-0940. It's been a really busy week. We've seen a lot of people. People are getting their vaccines, and they're starting to get back outside and go in for appointments and plan travel and all of that. So if you've been sitting around at home, trapped in your house, but you'd like to come in for a free consultation, you can do so. Just call the office at 922-8100 to make an appointment with either one of us, and we can talk to you about your retirement plan, whatever you want to talk about, financial. I see some people, it's so funny, I see some people that are so worried about their retirement, and then they have saved like millions of dollars and they don't spend any money. And it's like, I had one last week, and I said, my advice to you, take a trip, book a trip. Because they've been such savers for so long that they're almost scared to spend anything.
A lot of times it's their personality, and if they always save that way, they have such a hard time letting go and actually spending the money.
And then they're inheriting on top of it. And so it was funny, but then you see the other side too, which they don't have enough, and then they've got to keep working and all of that. So whatever your situation is, feel free to come. The consultations are complimentary. We are able to do that because we charge fees for managing money for our clients, and so we can see people for all different reasons and not charge you anything, and it's all good. So one last little tip before we get started with the material. I read this, or actually Lori from Channel 13 emailed me yesterday. The vaccine is expanded to people 55 and older for the state of Georgia now, and people that are disabled, and then people that have certain health conditions. And there's a whole list. There are two emails. There's one about who can go ahead and get it now, and the other one is how to book the appointment. So if you feel like you have not been able to get that information, just email me at Sherri, Sherri, at rfmoney.com, and I'll forward those emails to you so that you can get informed on what to do.
Yes, people want to get the vaccine so they can get out,
right?
Get doing things, and
it was packed.
With their life.
It was so busy last night. We went out for sushi downtown, and the place was packed. Every place was packed. There is no social distancing tables anymore. There is no, and the servers were just running like wild people because there were two. And that's what I stopped and talked to a manager of a restaurant this morning, and she told me that the people are working 2 days a week and not coming back to work for the rest of the week because they're still getting full unemployment. And now that they're getting all this extra money, they have more incentive not to work than to work, and it's a massive problem. I don't know what they're going to do.
We need to figure out the solution. We can help save America.
She said nobody wants to work because they're making too much money on the unemployment.
Yeah, it's hard to motivate people to get back if they can sit at home and get a check and make more money.
Right. So it's a huge problem, and now it's extended to September. I don't know what they're going to do. Maybe we should volunteer to work in a restaurant. If you want a job, there's jobs everywhere. All righty, first topic of the day. You want to lead off with this one?
Sure. Refinancing your mortgage. I had a client in last week, and they asked about if they should refinance their mortgage. And in this case, the client that I was talking with actually had an older mortgage. I think it was like 10 or 12 years old, and it had a 6% rate. So they can cut their rate in half at least. So I ran some numbers for them, and we found that they could probably save $20,000 to $30,000. So in a lot of instances, it is a great thing to do. I found an article from DaveRamsey.com, and it's just talking about the rates are so low right now that it's one of the best times to take advantage of this. And if you can get at least a 1% to 2% drop in your interest rate, it can make a huge difference in your payment and your overall monthly budget and ability to pay off your mortgage faster. So a lot of people are going from like a 20, maybe they have paid 5 or 6 years and they have about 23, 25 years left somewhere in there. They're able to refinance for 15 years and have the payment be similar and able to get that mortgage paid off a lot quicker. So just a couple little things on this article that talks about how refinancing works. I'm sure a lot of you already listening know, but it's getting a new mortgage by changing the terms of the one you already have on your mortgage, like a lower rate or switching mortgage companies or changing your payment. And some of the things they're going to look at is that you've maintained your original mortgage, so make sure you've been paying good on that. If you've had some slow pays on it, it may be harder to get reapproved. Equity, you'll need to show you have at least 10 to 20% equity in your home income. I know that could be a challenge for some people that have lost jobs recently or last year. The lender, the bank, is going to want to make sure that you have the income to pay that back, and they're going to want to see that you're currently making income, and then your credit status. So make sure that your credit's all good and tidy before you go to apply for a loan. And then some of the reasons that it might make the most sense is if you have an adjustable rate mortgage. I don't know if there's too many of those left out there, but I'm sure there's some people that have taken advantages of ARMs or adjustable rate mortgages, and it might be a lot better for you to be able to go ahead and get that put into a fixed rate so you don't have any surprises down the road with that.
Right.
If your mortgage is over 15 years, if you have a higher interest rate, and if you have a second mortgage, you can maybe combine the two and save money there by consolidating those payments. So just work with a reputable lender. Let it get Sherri and I. We'd be happy to help you to talk through some numbers with you if you want to see if it really is going to be to your benefit. There'll be probably an application fee, a new appraisal fee, and then possibly some attorney fees for closing. But I know we work with Robbins with a lot of our clients, and I called them Friday but didn't get back in touch with anybody. They're probably so busy because they're refinancing.
Right.
So we'll see. We'll update you next week and see what type of programs they have right now for that.
So if you go to DaveRamsey.com, he has a mortgage refinance calculator that is really good right on the website, and it's free. And you can put in your numbers there, and you can see how much you would save in seconds. And it's so interesting. I was on the weather app this morning to see what the weather was going to be like this weekend. LendingTree is advertising on the weather app I use 1.99.
Wow. For what term did it say?
It didn't. I had multiple terms, and I can't remember because I went through. It wanted me to put all my personal information in to get, and so I stopped. I didn't do it, so I don't know. Yeah, but that's the best one I've seen.
Be ready and be serious about it, but don't just go surf everywhere, because every time I would go to a website to find out information, it wanted my address and all that information.
Right, I'm not giving that out.
No, so just find your lender that maybe you're currently with, or somebody, another lender that you feel comfortable with, and just try one or two places, but I wouldn't, start shopping all over.
Right, and Zillow has a shop for refi rates because they're a big real estate company. And so they're advertising too, but you can go on their website and compare. But yeah, I would start with my current lender. I really, really like it when people pay off their mortgage before they retire. It makes such a difference in how comfortable you are financially, and most people are better off not having a mortgage. But the problem is that where you're going to stay? This is one of the biggest problems I deal with when couples come to see me, is one of them wants to live in the mountains and one of them wants to live on the beach. Or one of them wants to downsize to a loft and the other one likes to stay in a big home. Or one of them wants to stay in a house where they have lots of bedrooms because the kids visit twice a year and they want all those bedrooms, but the spouse is like, let's send them to Marriott. I mean, why are we paying all this money to keep up this house when they only come twice a year? Does that make any sense? They could rent a house for those weekends and save a fortune. So it's hard, though, to get on the same page with what you really want in retirement. And we downsized, and now we're moving again, and we're going to downsize again. And because we just keep moving around, because it's just what we've done ever since we've been married. Fix up something and move to the next thing.
I think you're right, though, and even I've talked through a couple with the couples this week that had some different ideas. And sometimes just getting somebody else to listen and for you to kind of navigate them to talk through it. They were trying to figure out, they said, well, we only owe like $70,000 left, which they could get paid off by the time they were retired. But they were like, well, we probably want like a one-story house. So get them to talk about it.
See, that's the thing. That is the big thing. Is that where you really want to be as you're getting older? So let's go to the phones. Good morning. You're on with Becca and Sherri.
Good morning to the both of you. This is Robin Jackson out of Perry, Georgia. And I must say that, yes, good morning now. Got 2 or 3 things. Well, first of all, those who are up for the vaccine, please take the shots. I took both of mine about a week ago, so I would recommend them, and I didn't have any side effects. So don't worry about the side effects. Some folks did say they had to go on. But another thing, as far as with the stimulus, I know you said that some folks are being mailed a check that say that they don't need the money. That is good, as far as they can always send the money back to the government for the national debt. And they can give it to the church, to some family who...
I think the point is the government's spending money that people don't need. They're giving money to people that have no need for it, and they're putting us in debt. That's the problem.
Well, that's the problem. Like I said, and with the problem, they can always get that money back to the government as far as the national debt. I think the national debt is $22.
That's not going to be applied to that.
I know they won't do that, but if they don't know what to do with the money, they can do that.
Okay.
One other thing, as far as I know you haven't mentioned it, as far as there's going to be an election on this coming Tuesday, the 16th of March. Houston County. There will be the East Splash is up for election at the Educational Special Purpose Local Office.
Right.
Sales type, and they are trying to get the penny continuing. So in other words, but I don't think that is a good thing as far as we're giving the Houston County Board of Education a blank check as far as them doing what they want to do, especially how they did with the Houston High School, the Black High School in Perry, Georgia, where they tore it down, and after building it up 2 or 3 times, they first made it out of
okay, let's divert from all of that. We don't need to hear all of that, I don't think, but I think it is important, your point, that people need to pay attention to elections and understand what they're voting for and go vote. I think that's a really good point. All right? Yeah. One last thing about the mortgage deal. If you have aging parents, I have a lot of families that are moving in together. They're moving into a house where they can all live together, and that's a whole other consideration on this thing.
Yeah, I had some clients last week, and they're getting ready. They just put money down on land, and they're getting ready to build a new home, and it's all with consideration of
the parents
and making sure that there was enough room for everybody, but yet having maybe one story mostly to be able to make it ADA and.
So yeah, there's a lot to think about. It's one of the hardest decisions I see people going through as they get ready to retire. So then there was an article about cash out refis, which really kind of blew my mind. Is that the next one you have?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So U.S. homeowners cashed out $152 billion in home equity last year, a 42% increase from 2019, and the most since 2007, according to Freddie Mac. Some borrowers view cash out refis as a way to cushion themselves against uncertain economies, or others want to build and redecorate. I don't know. This concerns me terribly. I don't like the sound of it at all. Even though your house price went up and you could borrow more, what you did with the money, I don't know.
Right. If they put the money into the house, it can be a really good thing. Or maybe if they got themselves, well, if it was.
Depends on what they did.
That's true.
There's certain things you really need to talk to a home inspector to learn what improvements actually increase your appraised value, because a lot of the stuff that people do, they do it because it feels good and it's what they want, but it doesn't improve the value at all.
Right. Carpet, paint, all that it's all supposed to be included. So redoing all that doesn't add value.
Yeah. So before you do this, make sure you do the math and get the numbers right and it makes sense, and you want to make sure that you're going to stay there for the long term to enjoy this stuff that you've spent all this money on.
And then also it was saying, just a reminder, in the 2017 tax overhaul, borrowers typically can't deduct the interest on the cash out portion of a refi unless it was used for home improvements. So be careful when you're trying to claim all that mortgage interest.
So the average cash out was $50,000. So that's a pretty major project. Last year, about 1/3 of refinancers chose the cash out option. I hope these were young people that are years away from retirement.
I have a feeling some of them bought new cars and paid off credit card debt, which is
that's
not
my
always
gut
a good
too.
choice.
That's my gut too. That's what I thought. Okay. So I found an article and I shoved it right in here before inflation. So I'm sorry I'm doing this to you, but it's the whole where does the money from the stimulus payment come from?
Yes.
So I don't know. I sent you stuff last night and this morning, and then half of it went in the trash can. So I apologize for that. But
I was up till 3 reading it all, Sherri.
Oh, gosh. Good job. So the U.S. Mint headquarters in Washington, D.C. is quite literally the building in charge of printing money, which I don't think they're working. I think they're off COVID. I think they've been out of work because they're a government agency, which is, we don't need money hardly anymore because nobody's hardly using it. But anyways, but when it comes to where stimulus and unemployment money comes from, the printing press or U.S. Mint actually isn't involved at all. In order for Congress to pass these trillion-dollar laws that eventually get some money in your wallet, the Treasury has to borrow money. They can borrow as much as they want. They can borrow money from private investors, foreign entities, and other governments. Basically, the Treasury issues a bond or a note that is really an IOU, promising to pay back the money with a little bit of interest one day. But the biggest buyer of these IOUs right now is an entity called the Federal Reserve, and they have the power to create money, which is what they did back in 2008. But again, they aren't printing anything. Instead, they are typing a number into their computer, creating another line item, and like magic, a digital currency is borrowed by the Treasury Department, and all that borrowing gives the Treasury Department the ability to issue these stimulus checks. So is there risk in all of this? There is a word that scares economists, and the word is inflation. That's when there's too much money in circulation and there aren't enough goods. That's when money becomes nearly worthless, like in some third world countries, which is not us. Now economists don't believe we are at risk of it right now, as long as all this is managed correctly and our economy is still producing more than we owe. And while all of this sounds complicated, that's how getting a stimulus check works. So it's just the same thing we did back during the recession. It's just that they're going bigger this time, and it's more political this time than it was last time. So it will be interesting to see what happens with inflation. So do you want to talk about the next article that about inflation?
Yeah, how inflation impacts your life. So inflation means that you have more money, you pay more for the same goods and services. So over time, your bread went from 99 cents to $3.99. And so it's just
I want to know why crackers are so organic crackers are so expensive.
What's in them?
Lots of seeds. I guess seeds are expensive. I don't know. I feel like I'm just getting ripped off.
They take out all those cheap fillers, all the corn products.
Anyway, sorry.
That's okay. So anyway, with inflation, it's basically your buying power. And, you may have $300,000 saved up for retirement today, but what is that $300,000 really going to be like in 5 or 10 years? So it was just talking about, gas prices can double while your home loses value, and so not everything is going to have inflation the same way. So like it was talking about in 2008, the home prices deflated majorly from almost 22%, but yet gas prices continued to go up. So it says sometimes inflation is good for the economy. When it's mild, inflation has a healthy side effect. Once people start to expect inflation, they spend now rather than later because they know the prices will be higher in the future. So consumer spending drives economic growth. So you want like a good, healthy 2% where people do continue to buy and save up so that they're not, they don't want to pay the higher prices tomorrow. But, like I mentioned earlier, inflation can be bad for your retirement planning, and your target amount must keep rising to pay for the same quality of life as time goes by. So you just want to make sure that you save more than you think you'll need. Like Sherri said, most of the people we run into are on one side of the fence or the other. They've oversaved, not necessarily oversaved, but they have saved plenty, and still are worried that it's not enough. And then you have the other people that have barely saved and are still worried about it or, want to retire. So, again, it's always good to talk to somebody, and we are always happy to meet with people. But the inflation can definitely change the course of your retirement if you're not keeping an eye on that.
So it was so interesting. Back in 2008, gas prices were dropping because the economy was shutting down basically because of everything that was going on. And the first thing that increased in revenues were pizza restaurants, because the gas prices dropped so much that families were able to start ordering pizzas again because it was like free. It was like they were saving so much money in one pot that they had money to spend over here. So I think it was Pizza Hut. I can't remember who is the number one seller of pizza, but that's the same thing that happened this time during COVID is pizza sales went through the roof because of the lockdown.
Well, overall, all food delivery, we went out last night for Mexican, and while we were sitting there waiting, there was at least 5 different DoorDash delivery people coming in waiting to pick up food. And as long as we had to wait, we thought it might have been better just to get DoorDash.
Right.
Or have it delivered there. But, yeah, it's amazing with COVID, people not wanting to get out, and people, just want to have it delivered to their door. It's a lot easier.
Anyways, so the Treasury yields, I don't know that we need to talk about that. Did you have anything you want to say about that?
No, I was just talking about that the 10-year Treasury yield moved back up over to 1.5%, and basically it's driven by unemployment. So the unemployment claims have continued to fall, and so that's a good thing. We're hoping that more people are back to work and they can get off those unemployment checks.
Yep. So the next article is about timing the market. I didn't see much in here. So I'm going to flip to will the stock market crash again in 2021?
Okay.
And there wasn't a whole lot in this one either. So you can worry all day long. I'm seeing a lot of people that are so stressed out. They're so worried about the economy and the market and our government and our politicians, and you really need to take a break from all of this stuff because things are going to work out. We go through up cycles, we go through down cycles. We're going to come out the other end of this thing, and worry is not going to help anybody with anything. So, and it also can really affect your actions and make you do things that you might regret later.
Yeah, that article, the crash market or the stock market crashing, will it do that? It talks about, there's been the Great Depression of 29, 87, 9/11, 2008, and then in 2020. So chances are you've already lived through several of these. And like Sherri said, it always comes back. It's kind of part of life, and it's never fun to go through it. But how you, approach it is definitely going to make all the difference because we always overcome these, not promising that we always will, but in the past we've always overcome any type of down market. And it's, like you said, how you react to that. And you can focus on it, but there's really not a lot that you can do about the overall stock market. But just making sure that you refuse to panic, keep where you're at. I talk about that, about just kind of buying and holding. No one can really time the market. And, you can always look back and say, I should have bought this and I should have sold then. But going forward, no one ever knows what the market's going to do. So unless you have, clairvoyant capabilities and you absolutely know, just buy and hold and stay there or have a plan and follow that plan.
Or come and see us, and we manage portfolios, and we do. So that's what we do for a living is we manage portfolios for people that don't want to deal with this because it stresses them out. And the older you get and the closer you get to retirement, most people don't want to deal with this stuff and have to go do the research and figure out what to be in. And they don't want the buy and hold because they can't afford the dip. They mentally can't take it. So, so I was talking to our portfolio manager, Lou. I've been talking to him often on the last month about sector rotation. So there are 11 different stock sectors. So the energy, materials, industrials, utilities, healthcare, financials, consumer discretionary, consumer staples, information technology, communications, and real estate. And so our portfolio stopped out of the market last March 2020, and we moved into primarily technology, communication, consumer staples, and healthcare. And those are the sectors that we have been in. We just have more recently moved into industrials, materials, because of the whole infrastructure thing that I think Biden is going to do. And more money is going to be spent on everything, period, as the economy, as everybody opens back up. There's just going to be more spending, period, on everything.
For sure.
So, anyways, is there anything else in here? So here's what's confusing is like people wonder what is in the material sector and what is in the industrial sector, because we don't ever talk about this. So the material sector includes companies that provide goods for use in manufacturing and other applications, chemicals, construction material, containers, packaging, mining stocks, companies specializing in making paper and forest products. A client called a couple weeks ago and said, we need to buy copper because copper was way up. Well, copper is in an ETF that we hold in our portfolio, along with all of these other things that I just mentioned. We also have an industrial ETF in the portfolio. Industrial sector encompasses transportation stocks such as airlines, railroads, logistics companies, aerospace, defense, construction, engineering industries, building products, electrical equipment, and machinery. And so we are trying to pick the healthiest, best companies in these sectors, but we also are holding some ETFs in these sectors because the sectors do rotate depending on what is going on in the economy, and some become more profitable than others. It's a constant shifting as things change, and the world is changing so much that it's crazy. It's not just here; it's globally. This is happening. So, anyways, I just think that's very interesting.
Well, and like you said, if we have a plan and you stick to it, whichever that is, if it's having somebody manage your money and someone like Lou, that's the one that's actually watching this, because like Sherri said, most people, this isn't their job, and this takes, hours for us just to stay up on things, and most people don't have this kind of time in their life and aren't
or
that
the interest.
Yeah. So let a professional do it, and they, Sherri and I will talk to you, and there's different routes you can go, but whatever that plan is, have a plan and stick to it, so you aren't constantly every day trying to change your mind about something. It's just going to give you too much stress. Yes,
right. So
absolutely.
stressed out. So I have another thing that I stuck in here because it ties into that. I'm sorry I did this to you.
Oh,
we have a phone?
Call?
Yay! Go to the phones. You're on with Becca and Sherri.
Good morning. Good morning. The very best to Becca and Sherri this morning.
Good morning.
Hey,
okay?
Bobby.
Are you there?
Coming through?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Listen, I wanted to ask you, I wrote down a couple of things about this unemployment and about people getting more money by not working.
Right.
You're right. They are not going to be going back to work. And, people can think that they're going to, spend the money on something good, but they're going to wind up buying beer, cigarettes, and candy bars.
And tattoos.
Just stay at home,
So we were out one night, and there was this lady sitting next to us that runs a tattoo parlor downtown. Really nice lady. And I said, has your business slowed down at all since the COVID? And she said, no, it's never slowed down at all. Period.
Crazy?
She said because people are spending their stimulus checks on tattoos.
What's good for her?
That's
her
how.
business.
Isn't that great? What a great use of our money.
Right.
Anyways, what else you got?
I was going to ask you about real estate. I heard Becca talking about refinancing.
Right.
I was talking to a realtor not too long ago, a good friend of mine, and I think she was saying it was like 3.25% right now. So it's just a great time to refinance if you can.
Right.
If somebody like you said is paying 6 or 7.
Right.
That would be perfect for them. So I'm glad that you brought that point up.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is about the stimulus money that people are getting that maybe they're not really, they don't need it.
Right.
I would encourage them to, hire somebody that they want to do some work around the house or, give it to the people that are out there trying to make a living.
Right.
That was the worst thing we ever did was shut this economy down during COVID. I would say those people should have stayed at home. If you're scared and you don't want to go out, let the people make a living that are out there that have businesses, so they could have survived.
Right.
But anyway, that was my thought, this morning. So
thank you.
Great information. We appreciate you all and keep up the great work.
Thank you so much and have a good weekend.
Yeah, and the rate chart I printed off, there was some 15-year rates as low as 2.34%. So
and that's
you
now.
Can go to a 15% or a 15-year loan over a 30-year loan, you can cut that to like 2.5 or less.
Yep.
Some great deals out there.
So this was an article that I just found this morning that I sent you this morning. Sorry. And this is what I've been telling, is what I've been predicting. So, and this is a part of the whole sector rotation thing. Here we go. House Democrats said on Friday afternoon they are officially starting work on an infrastructure package, kicking off what appears likely to be a lengthy stretch of negotiation on a multi-trillion-dollar economic recovery bill. Building our transportation system has long been bipartisan. They want to spend on energy, broadband, education, housing, water systems. As we engage in these job-creating initiatives, we must discuss their impact on the federal budget, on creating economic growth, and on preserving our planet. I always love that, preserving our planet.
They try to make you feel bad if you don't believe in it.
Right.
Don't you want the planet to be preserved?
Right. How can we use the tax code to invest in modernizing and lifting up our communities while creating good jobs, which they just shut down the XL pipeline? Oops.
Well, not those jobs. They don't feel like those are good jobs.
Right. So when he was campaigning, he was talking about $2 trillion. They're talking about $4 trillion. That has been my gut for a month.
Yep.
I don't know why I had that number in my head, but all I could figure is he has to double down on the 1.9 stimulus. And so, so anyways, they want to fast track this thing. Since they were able to fast track the 1.9, they think they can shove this thing through. And that's the next thing. And this will carry him all the way to the end of his term, the spending. Because this 1.9 carries us through next year, the spending. And so, I mean, it's just like a spend-a-thon. And yeah, we've been talking about needing infrastructure for years and years. Obama talked about it. Trump talked about it. He couldn't get anything through. But anyways, Biden initially said it would release an infrastructure plan in February. There is no plan yet, so who knows what they're going to do and what they're going to spend the money on.
We will find out.
All righty, what you got?
The next thing we had was the tax brackets.
Oh, yeah.
And people taking money out of their IRAs. And
Yeah, so this guy emails me, and he's trying to get his mother's things in order, and he's trying to make it simpler. And he said, I'm thinking about cashing out my mom's IRAs, and they're worth about $250,000. And so she makes, between pension and business income and Social Security, she makes $130,000 a year. So here's how the tax brackets work. So the first $9,000, roughly $10,000 that you earn is taxed at 10%. From $10,000 to $40,000, you're taxed at 12%. From $40,000 to $86,000, you're taxed at 22%. From $86,000 to $164,000, you're taxed at 24%. So it's not a flat amount taxed on $130,000 income. There are brackets for every percentage of what you're earning, and this is for a single person. So if they cashed out that IRA of $250,000, most of that money would be taxed at the 32% rate, and some of it would be taxed at the 35% rate from 209 to 523. So let me see, 250, 350, 380. So actually $180,000 would be taxed at 35%.
Which is crazy.
So you're throwing a third of the money to the government.
Whereas if you did it in sections, maybe you did it over 3 years and you were still in the 24% bracket,
right.
That's not fun, but it's still 11% less that you're giving to the government just because you don't want to do some planning or
and she doesn't need
talk
it.
to somebody.
She doesn't need the money. They're just trying to simplify things. And so I said, you guys are two beneficiaries. You need to leave it alone, inherit this, split it in half, and then you guys have to take it out, depending on if they change the laws or not by then.
Right. And when you do something like that where you have 2 or 3 or even 4 beneficiaries on an IRA, you're splitting it instead of $250,000 maybe to, $125,000
right.
or $50,000, even less. And then not only is there going to be less tax, but those people are probably at a lower tax bracket.
Right.
So yeah, do some planning. Call us. We will help you.
But I was so glad he emailed me because he was just thinking about it. Because it's just like he just wants to get rid of accounts. And I understand the thought of that because there's a lot to deal with. And she's having to take distributions, and it seems like a hassle. But it's like, no, the cashing it out is not an option.
Yeah. Simplicity can be nice, but it can also cost you a lot.
So there's a realtor downtown that is asking me, and Randy and myself, to meet with her and be kind of mentors to her because she's fairly new in having a storefront business, and she's currently an LLC. And so in preparation for meeting with her, I looked into the LLC S Corporation and which is better. So an LLC, a lot of people do LLCs because it's so easy. It is super easy to form. You create a business name. You get a checking account. I mean, there's very little paperwork because that's what you did, right?
Actually, I still have a sole proprietor. I'm still Schedule C.
Okay. So when I started out in the insurance business, I created an LLC. So they have a lot of flexibility and fewer legal requirements. I was doing my taxes about 3 years into the business, and the CPA told me you need to convert to an S Corp. So with an S Corp, you have to form a board, you have to have formal paperwork, you have to have a plan document, and all that kind of stuff. So it is a little bit more, but you can still do it all online, and I didn't pay anyone to do any of it. I did it myself. But the benefit of switching from an LLC to an S Corp is this. S corporation's tax treatment can provide a way to take some money out of your business without paying employment taxes. This is because you do not have to pay employment tax on distributions from your S corporation, that is, on earnings and profits that pass through the corporation to you as an owner, not as an employee. So let me explain. So I have an S corp. Randy and I are employees. I'm the president, and he's like the secretary and vice president or whatever on the document. I run payroll through a payroll company to pay us every month, and then the CPA tells me how much I can take out a year in distributions. The distributions go directly from my business account to my bank account. The other, I won't even go. There's another thing. I won't even mix that in this whatever, make it more complicated. But anyways, it's a pass-through corporation, so. And it's completely legal to do that. And so if you're an LLC and you're wondering, and your business has grown, and you're wondering if you should make a change, when you do your taxes this year, bring it up to your CPA and ask them if they would advise that you do this, because it may be a really good thing for you. And then the secondary thing I wanted to add, this was a client email. No, this was a client appointment. So we're meeting for a review, and she says, she's an S Corp, and she owns a business, and her husband is retired. And she says, we have wills and everything, but what if I die how's my husband going to access the money in my bank account for my business?
Uh-oh.
I hadn't even thought about it. I hadn't thought about it for myself. I guess I don't think I'm going to die anytime soon. I've covered everything else but that. And so I emailed Jennifer Haskins, an attorney in Macon, and she responded. She said, we often refer to corporate assets in wills, but really it's a separate legal entity from the person. I advise my clients to have a succession agreement within their corporate documents, which we do have. I have that, setting out how the business is to flow, but we also refer to it in the will. If she wants the executor to have immediate access to that account, and if she trusts them, of course, I would suggest she add their name to the account so that when she passes, there is immediate access. That is the easiest thing. If the person you're going to do this with, like Randy, he's already on my bank account, and so he could write checks, he could do whatever he wants with that, which is really the way it needs to go. So if you have a business, you need to be thinking about the succession and how are things going to go if something happens to you out of the blue. All of a sudden, you could just be having a serious surgery and being home for a month and not being able to be in the office paying the bills and stuff. Who's going to do all of that? It's really, really a good thing to think about. I was really proud of her for even coming up with that.
The bad thing will be if you have a business by yourself and you don't really have somebody that you trust or somebody that can do that.
Right.
But you definitely want to cover it in your will so that at the end there's somebody that can take care of it. But it'd be great to have somebody that you could trust and that could help out with that.
You really would be better to have somebody while you're alive so that you can train them. I met a woman, I went to SBDC Grossmart class last year, and it's for business. It's to help businesses figure out how they can grow better and smarter, and there were about 15 of us in the room, all business owners, sharing ideas, and we had this trainer, and it was like 1 day a week for 8 weeks or something. And there was a lady in there who inherited by the will a company.
Oh, my.
And her uncle never told her that it was coming to her. She found out when he died.
Sounds like a Hallmark movie.
Right? Yes. I mean, she told us all about it. We were all just engrossed in the story. And she said that the employees stayed, thank God, because they know how to do everything. And she really doesn't understand the processes of how it even works. And they make a product that they sell globally.
Wow.
They're shipping stuff all over the world and making stuff right here in Macon, and they're shipping it, and now she has it, and she's trying to learn it. And
why wouldn't he have done better planning and let her know? He could have got her involved. Maybe he didn't think she would take it.
Well, she had a full-time job, and she was really busy.
Wow.
She was in the medical field.
But if you spent your life building something, you want to make sure that you have somebody that can run that and take care of it. And it sounds like he had a good staff, at least, that could take care of it.
Thank God they stuck around. And they make a product that there's demand for, but she's like, I don't even understand how this works. I don't even understand how they make this thing.
Wow.
And she has another relative that is there that drew the initial plans up for the whole business, and he's like the smart guy in the room that knows how everything works. I said, you need to sit down with that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, but she was just in shell shock. Like I can't even imagine. That'd be like inheriting a farm or something.
You need to get out and milk those cows in the morning. Hey, Sherri.
So, make sure you talk to people before you give them something in your will so that they can be mentally prepared.
Well,
anyways.
And everything you've worked for to make sure that it gets passed on the way you'd want to see it passed on and continued.
Yeah, that was huge. Anyways, what would you like to talk about next?
Well, speaking about that, I had someone call me that had an old brokerage account, and they were like, hey, I've got this brokerage account. It's just been sitting there. I'd like you to take care of it and, manage it for me. So basically, we moved their money from like TD Ameritrade, and they had like 4 or 5 stocks that, someone had given them great advice on, and basically they've owned these stocks for 10 or 12 years, and they've just sat there until they've basically almost all just run into zero. They're all, I think, 3 of the 4 like less than a penny each per share.
Oh, my gosh.
Then there's another like $25,000 big chunk that's just sitting in a savings portion, and it's getting like 0.001%. And so this person has this money just sitting in a brokerage account doing absolutely nothing. And not only could they be using that money to, grow and,
for
their
retirement,
but also for their family members that, or how many accounts do you have that maybe your family doesn't know about?
Oh my gosh, it's a disaster.
Especially if one spouse has already passed away and the other one is trying to keep track of things, and maybe they haven't shared with their family everything they have. But it's a good idea to get these accounts and maybe all in one place, or we talked about the life book.
Right.
Just to have a way to keep track of all of that, so when something does happen, because even though we don't like to think about it, everybody's going to die at some point. You need to be prepared.
Is that an individual account or an IRA?
It's just an individual brokerage account.
The other thing they could do is start, if they qualify, start moving that money into an IRA or a Roth every year. and get it out of the individual taxable account.
Yeah.
Because unless there's no reason to open an individual account unless that's the only way you can save, and you've already maxed out your 401k and your IRA and the Roth options. You want tax-free growth, not taxes in 1099s every year on whatever you make.
Right, and so many people forget about the IRAs and the Roths and putting money into it, and you can do that up until the next year you file your taxes. So for this year, you can still put money up to $6,000 or $7,000, depending on your age, into an IRA or a Roth for 2020 up on this year until you file your taxes. So talk to somebody, talk to your CPA, talk to us, but there's ways around that to get your money in a better tax-qualified account.
Yes, but that's a really, really good point about these little accounts that are just laying around, hanging out there. You change jobs a lot, and you've got old 401ks. Call the companies, find the information, roll it over into your IRA, get it done now, because it's a huge problem. In fact, I have old accounts from people back when I was doing 403Bs for nonprofits, 16 years ago. Oh, wow. I had like 3 different entities. Well, people move. They don't tell me. I can't contact them. They're not getting a statement. I mean, I can't do anything. I can't do anything with the account because I don't know where they are.
Well, and the longer you wait, the more likely the company has changed information, and maybe, they get bought out and they've changed names.
Right. That's a massive problem.
It's harder for you to actually track them down, but, get somebody that can help you, and you can consolidate them, or you can at least update that information and keep track of them. But we had an article on our website called The Junk Drawer, and it was kind of talking about like that, just your random little accounts that you had. And sometimes I had one client come in, and she needed to open some accounts because she'd forgotten she even had like stock purchase plan through her company, and she'd been gone for like 10 years. And it took quite a while to get the stuff moved over because some of it was even with unclaimed money in Georgia.
Oh, no.
So we had to go dig that back out, and she had the stocks from the company and a 401k and a retirement, and it's money that she would have forgotten about, but she just happened to talk to an employee, and they're like, you had that, right? And she'd completely forgotten about it.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, and if you have a bank account and there's no activity in a year, the bank can send your money to the unclaimed whatever. I can't remember the website, but it's free in the state of Georgia to search for unclaimed money. It's not a bad idea for something to do on a rainy day, which is going to be next week. So you're stuck at home on a rainy day, go look for unclaimed money and look up your family members and just see if anybody has anything hanging out there that they forgot about that they need to claim.
And just be careful with the sites, because I know you look at the sites and some of them are kind of look spammy, and they're trying to get you to pay a fee or trying to get your information. So be sure that you are using a reputable site. You could always give us a call or email us. I'm Becca, Becca, at rfmoney.com, or Sherri, Sherri, at rfmoney.com, and we'll be happy to give you that address.
So this says the Department of Revenue has the Georgia unclaimed property that you can search. It's dor.georgia.gov. dor.georgia.gov. Yeah, not a bad idea at all. This is very common. Very common.
Yeah. I mean, even if it's, a couple $100s or a couple $1,000s, I'm sure it could help out. Yeah, it's your money. You earned it at some point somehow.
Right. All right. What's your next thing you want to talk about?
I had something come up about your asset allocation. And basically, some people just manage their own money, and that's great. Some people do a great job. But the story was talking about how often should you check your asset allocation. And I would say at least maybe annually, every maybe 2 years, or if there's been some major market changes. And as you progress in your age, your asset allocation is probably going to change. You're probably going to want a little more safety as you do get older. So again, just kind of look through your portfolio, or again, get somebody that can help you and look through that and see if it makes sense. The rule of thumb is kind of like your age. However old you are, you could kind of put that amount in bonds, and the rest could be in stocks. So if you're like 30 years old, you may want like 30% in bonds and have 70% in the market. But if you're that young, you may feel more comfortable to go 100% in the market.
Right.
So that's kind of the rule of thumb they used to teach. But now I think people kind of just, so I know Sherri and I, we talk to each person individually, get, their comfort level and figure out how
it's personality driven.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's big because some people, I've met young people that are extremely risk averse, and I've met older people that are extremely aggressive. It's fascinating.
Yeah, there's our personality, and then also how much money they have. Because if they already have enough and they're not dependent on that money,
and they're never going to spend it.
Yeah, I had an older gentleman, and he opened up some accounts for his grandchildren, and he wanted them, even the ones that were like 13, 14, he wanted them to be very aggressive in those accounts because even though it was his money, it was for the grandkids, and so he figured that he wanted it to grow as much as he could for them to leave them as much as possible.
And on that subject of UGMA and UTMA accounts, where parents are putting or grandparents are putting money away for minor children. The regulators have come out and said that they are really going to crack down on beneficiaries continuing to hold custodians continuing to be over those accounts even when after the beneficiary reaches the age of 21. And so if you put money away in a custodial account, an UGMA or an UTMA account for a minor, and that minor is now 21 or older, you need to get the account switched over to the minor because they really want that done because it's actually illegal to have money held that way with a minor that's over 21.
Right. When you create that account, that is that minor's money, and it's in their Social Security, and they're the ones that have to pay taxes on it if it does happen to be something that's, largely taxed. But in Georgia, the age is 21 for both of the accounts.
Okay, good.
And some states have different ages for the UGMAs, UGMA, which is Uniform Gift to Minors. A lot of states have a 19 or 18-year age limit on that. But like Sherri said, after that, whatever that age of majority is for your state, at that point, that money is that beneficiaries or that child, no longer a minor, it is their money. And so as a custodian, you're not doing right by what you set up for them. There are some states that you can word the account in such a way that they can keep it like as a custodian until they're 25. But in most states, it's 21. And at that point, like Sherri said, some of the companies are even going to crack down. And the bank I used to work for would just automatically switch it over, and they just kind of make the custodian disappear off the account, and then all of a sudden it becomes the beneficiary's account.
Very excellent. I want to mention really quick SEP IRA contribution limits for self-employed people and small business owners. This is huge, and I don't know that everybody knows this. And I don't know how many small business owners we have listening to the program, but if you want an easy and inexpensive retirement plan, and it's just you and like me and Randy, I opened up SEP IRAs for both of us. And here's the deal. For 2021, a self-employed business owner effectively can put away as much as 25% of their net income in a SEP IRA, not to exceed the limit of $58,000. That is a lot better than an IRA or a Roth. So don't feel like if you're self-employed, you can't do anything and you can only do, that you can't have it. You don't need a 401k. If it's just you or like you and your business partner, and you don't have other employees, there are rules. If you depending on how many employees you have, you would have to open a simple instead. But in our case, we can do the SEP and it allows you to put away a lot of money per year. So talk to your CPA about that as well.
Yes, you can never start too early saving money. You can never take, too much advantage of time value of money. So you definitely want to put away as much as you can. And like Sherri said, the IRAs and Roth are $6,000 or $7,000 a year, and this can be up to $56,000 depending on your income. It's huge.
So, yeah, it's huge.
Let's talk about the stimulus and all of that. We've got money that's supposed to be coming out as soon as this weekend.
Right. How's that going to work?
Joe Doe is on its way. I've had several questions about it, and they're going to start with the people that had direct deposit previously. If you've gotten the stimulus check before and you got the full amount, chances are you'll get the full amount again. It's going to be $1,400 per person, including adult dependents. So if you had adult children, college-age kids, or even an elderly parent that you had claimed on your taxes, you'll get a $1,400 check or deposit for them as well. So it said that payments should go out to about 159 million households. It's just raining Joe Doe.
Raining Joe Doe. So this is very interesting. So people who were alive as of January 1 will qualify. That's a change. That's a change from the last time. So I have clients who passed away in late January. So I guess I need to email my client and say, did you keep their bank account open? Because you're going to have to deposit this money in their bank account. Because if the bank accounts are all closed because they're closing everything out because they passed, they can't cash this money.
It's going to be a nightmare because those accounts should be closed. There shouldn't be money running through it anymore. They should open an estate account if they're still going to be having money for that passed away person. But I guess there's that little window in there if maybe because from January to March, probably a lot of people haven't been on top of all that, getting accounts closed. But
I wonder if you can use a power of attorney to cash it.
I don't know. That's a good question.
I just was thinking about this last night.
Once you die, your power of attorney dies with you.
Right.
So I think it would have to be the executor, probably.
Of the estate, which he is, but I don't even think that they could do it. I mean, I don't know if the bank would take it.
The hard part will be the people that have closed those accounts out, so that deposit gets rejected back, and then waiting for a check, and then, did your mail get forwarded? And
right.
It's going to be a lot of work for these poor people that have lost their loved ones this year to go dig up that money. So we talked a little bit last week about the dollar amounts, and so if you're a single filer making up to $75,000, you'll get the full payment, and $150,000 for a couple. And in the previous ones, they had a graduated amount that kind of dropped off, and you got a prorated amount. But now, from 75 to 80, between that range of if you made say 78,000, you're going to get a reduced amount, and once you hit 80,000, you don't get anything. So it's kind of like a cliff that you fall off of.
Wow.
Yeah. The other thing that I thought was crazy was, so if you didn't qualify based on your tax return in 19 or even 20, or if you haven't gotten it, your 20 filed yet, you're going to be able to claim these credits from this $1,400 on your 2021 tax return.
Right. So make sure you do that if you didn't get those checks.
But that's talking like February of 2022.
Well, people that didn't get them last year need to claim it on this filing
absolutely.
season.
They need to get that 2020.
My mother-in-law never got anything. They have direct deposit. They file tax returns. They have everything. They've never received any of this stuff. So I told her, I said, make sure you tell your CPA so they can claim that credit on your tax return.
Yeah. I've had several people in this week that have gotten credits that because their income changed in 2020 from 2019, it went down. They are able to claim that on there, and they're able to get that refund back. But you also have to, if you had a baby this year, it said that you need to, when you file your 2021 taxes, that you'll be able to get the extra $1,400 per child. But if you had a baby in 2020, supposedly they know that, and they can track that, and you'll get the extra $1,400.
Depends on when you had the baby. If you had the baby after you filed your tax return, they're not going to know about it.
This article said they're
know.
They're
psychic.
Yes.
Our government is psychic.
But in 2021, if you just had a baby in the last couple of weeks or the last month, you'll have to wait till 22 when you file your 21 taxes to get that $1,400. But that baby will be worth something.
Oh my gosh.
And the child credit went up from $2,000 to $3,000.
Right.
And if they're under 6 years old, it actually is going to be up to $3,600. That is just crazy.
Throwing money around.
I know. But definitely helping people with young kids, and definitely, hopefully, it'll ease some of the pain that they've had over the last year or so with reduced incomes.
So do you want to talk about Larry King, or are you scrapping that one?
We can talk about Larry. He's got some
good
things.
A disaster.
So Larry King passed away, and he was separated from his wife, but they weren't officially divorced. So at the last minute on his deathbed, I guess like October or something, he did a handwritten will. And so a holographic will is considered handwritten, and each state's a little bit different whether they take it and if it's notarized correctly and all that.
And he's changed it to all of his kids, right?
Right. It said from here on out, everything else goes to the kids. And then since he did that on his little napkin or his piece of paper, I think one of the kids even passed away, so that makes it more confusing. But he's still married, and there was actually prenups that they had. So there's problems of, does the prenup trump out the handwritten will or whatnot? But
you don't want this to happen.
No, don't marry Larry King.
The attorneys would be very happy that it's happening, though, because they're going to make a lot of money off this whole thing.
Yes. The important thing from the whole situation is to have a will, have it properly prepared. You can do a handwritten will if something changes, and you just need to make sure that it states that, any previous will is null and void.
So I thought you couldn't do a handwritten will in Georgia.
We decided Georgia was one of the states you couldn't do, correct?
Right, yes.
Yeah, Georgia, Florida, Alabama.
So don't do that.
Don't do that in Georgia. But then there's some things that if you do it in a different state, like say you're living in California and you did it and then you moved to Georgia, it could still be considered valid.
Okay. Because of where it was.
Because of where it was originally created.
Okay, that's a good point.
But just the other thing we were going to talk about with it is to know that if you don't have a will, your assets will pass through intestate, and you there's a whole set of how it's going to go to your beneficiaries. So you want to know that in case you, if you die with a child but no spouse, your children inherit everything. If you have a spouse but no descendants, your spouse inherits everything. If you have spouse and children, then they equally share. So the
spouse is only guaranteed a third.
Right. So
and
normally you think that the spouse is going to get everything, but it's not.
So if you don't have a will and you're going to have a problem, go to Clark.com, and he has a whole special report on the top online will-making websites, and there's actually one that's free. So if you have a really simple situation and you can get to a computer, go to the library if you don't have one, and go to Clark.com and just search wills online, and you'll go to this special report. He explains everything, and there's links on how to get to them and all of it. It's great.
And you said something that even if you're not going to have problems or what, but it's so amazing the people that we've seen that thought everything was going to be smooth and fine, and then as soon as somebody dies and as soon as money's involved, everybody turns ugly.
Yeah,
and so
it's bad.
You don't want to leave your family in a situation where they're fighting because of you and the things you left or you didn't leave. So just take a few, minutes, a few hours, I guess. It'll probably take a little longer than a few minutes, but make some choices and know how you want your things left. People.
Absolutely. Well, we're almost out of time. This has been great. Thanks so much for listening. You've been listening to Your Money on News Talk 940 WMAC. You can go to our website, retirerelax.com, and you can see all sorts of special reports. You can subscribe to our email blast that Randy does. The good information goes out every week. If you can choose to read it, if you're interested, you can choose to delete it if you don't want to read it. But there are some really good things that he's been putting out. We have all the special reports, and he's working on putting my Channel 13 clips on there as well. So he's been busy, but go online, check us out. If you'd like a review appointment of your financial situation, or maybe even a plan that Becca could put together for you, just give us a call, 922-8100.
Have a great
weekend. Yes.
The views expressed on the show should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities or services mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risk, including loss of principal invested. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. No strategy can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information should only be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Securities are offered through Royal Alliance Associates Incorporated, member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services are offered through Rosenberg Financial Group, a registered investor advisor not affiliated with Royal Alliance Associates Incorporated. Offices are located at 2517 Moody Road, Warner Robins, and 4875 Riverside Drive, Suite 201 in Macon. Phone numbers are 922-8100 and 741-4457.